What's up, guys? Welcome along to All for United. We wasn't going to do United Daily this week because it's the international break. Then Neil messaged me last night going, look, Ben, I need an outlet Monday to tell everyone exactly what I thought of that performance last night. Please, can we do a show? So I thought, why not? And then all of a sudden, the doc jumped on and it became a whole thing. So thank goodness for this. It's more reaction to last night's defeat in the FA Cup to Leicester, including we usually do a Twitter react show the day after. I don't want to look at how Twitter reacted. I actually want to look at the shitstorm that the press and punditry was after the game last night. Some really weird comments coming out, and one in particular, which I cannot wait for Neil and Barry to rip into, from Danny Murphy this morning on TalkSport. So we are going to talk about that in a moment. Get in the live chat, guys. Hit a like on this video. Neil, we heard from Barry last night straight after the game, so let's come over to you. Your thoughts on that last night?
That's probably as angry as I've ever been watching United. It was, I mean, I've never, lamentable, just absolutely appalling. And I got into a bit of a back and forth with someone on Twitter last night about the performance, and it was just absolutely diabolical. I mean, we were completely and utterly, that was easily the worst performance I've ever seen from this team in many a year. It was disgusting, embarrassing.
Why? What was so bad about it, Neil?
Well, we've spoken about this before, us three, haven't we? And I have no idea what are the tactics. I'd love someone to tell me the tactics of the team. You can see the desperation when you make 4 substitutions in one go, the desperation that he's just chasing the game. And I'd love to know what he tells the players in the dressing room the last thing before they go out on the pitch. I'd love to know what the coach, what he's, because the buck stops with the manager when it's performances like that. I don't care what they say. I watched his interview with Man United afterwards, and it was just pitiful. Where it's, I don't want to make excuses, but, well, clearly everything before the word but, you just have to ignore. And he just made excuses. And we've been saying for weeks he's flogging this team to death. Now he's saying the player's knackered. And he's making, we used to take the mickey out of him making substitutions in the 83rd minute and stuff. Game management is diabolical, absolutely diabolical.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting last night. And again, I like the way that you spoke there about Ollie going, I don't want to make no excuses, but, and then making a load of excuses. It's an FA Cup quarter-final of which at half-time you saw that you'd be facing Southampton in the semi-final. And the players would have known this. We spoke after the Europa League tie of being able to see a clear route to the final. I don't think there is a clearer route to go on and win the FA Cup as I've seen in a long time than there was last night. I cannot understand how there's a consistent theme here with United. When there's a big game and there's an opportunity, we fall short every single time. And it's not just that we fall short by the finest of margins. We put in arguably some of the worst performances in recent times in those games. We can make excuses. Look, Europa League on Thursday, we didn't get a full week in training. We haven't had a full week in training in what feels like years now. We haven't this whole season. Players struggling with their fitness. I think if you on reflection, right, go back to the start of the game yesterday and put all these factors into account. Leicester have had a full week. Leicester have got a starter player set up. United haven't been able to work on a starter player set up in months. Leicester had, although they've got their own injury issues, they had fully fit players out on that pitch. I think you tell in the first half that we were carrying 3 players with their first game back from injuries, and all substantial layoffs in some ways, 6 to 8 weeks. In that team, there's no communication, there was no passage of play, there was no creativity, there was no understanding. I think the difference yesterday, and I don't know, Barry, if you want to expand on this, was that we played yesterday against a team that had a game plan, a team that worked on a game plan, and a team that executed that game plan. We looked like a bunch of individuals just hoping for the best and that a moment would fall to us that never actually occurred and never actually happened. And that was the problem. And there was no changing that. There was no way that we could adapt to that. We didn't know how to change to it. Leicester played the same from first minute to last. We were hopeless from first minute to last. And that's the difference between the two sides yesterday. Barry, what do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think Neil's description of it being a lamentable performance is spot on. Was utter rubbish yesterday, utter rubbish. And you hit the nail on the head that every time we come up in one of these games that potentially is a big opportunity, we fall short. We fall short badly, and it's Groundhog Day. I find myself repeating myself each time we have a bad performance. You say there's no time to work on the tactics. The tactics are the same every game. It's 4-2-3-1 every single game. 2 holding midfielders whenever it's against a team that you think might cause you problems. So coming, Ben, to one of your favourites who rapidly is becoming one of my favourites, Ndidi. Ndidi did the work of the two holding midfielders that United have and some more. So therein lies a problem. The perennial problem of disconnect between defence to midfield to attack, the transitioning, all so slow. And I think any student of football and any kids watching that game should watch how Leicester play when they don't have the ball. They are extremely fit. They hunt in packs. They want to get the ball back, and their midfield is awesome. So I looked at that midfield with some jealousy. I've been castigated for my comments on Fred in recent months. I think that he is utterly, utterly woeful and should never wear the shirt of Man United again. But it was not just at his feet that the blame lays. The whole team were totally ineffectual. And once again, we come back to one of Neil's points, in-game management. The in-game management is non-existent. It's one pattern of play all the time, and he's unable to effect change in the game. The front runners, Martial and Cavani, I mean, I'd like to see their so-called heat maps for the game. They hardly touched the ball the entire game. The Leicester centre-backs probably had their easiest game of the season. So we were outplayed, we were outskilled, we were out-tacticked, if there's such a word, by Brendan Rodgers, and there can be no excuses. And I think that after a game like that, Solskjaer should be yelling and screaming about what a poor performance it was, instead of offering these absolutely pathetic excuses. We win together and we lose together. What a load of crap.
Do you know what I find quite interesting? You're right there, Barry. Martial, Cavani, neither of them win the game. You can't say that they played really badly, but you can't say that they ever picked up the ball or went that extra mile to do something different. Why, Barry? Why couldn't we bring our forward players into the game? We had Donny, we had Pogba, we had Matic, who's usually got a good forward pass on him. We talk about, all of his flaws and him getting on. He's good at playing the ball forward. He is. Yeah. And again, fullbacks, Tellez can put a good ball in the box. He's good at getting down the wing. Wan-Bissaka the same. Like, why couldn't we get them in the game yesterday?
Well, the passing was pathetic. We surrendered possession time and time again. And if you even watch a lot of the simple passes, 3-4 meter passes, were going behind the players. So it disturbs the flow of the game. But I mean, passing, which is such a basic requirement, I really think that after that game, they should have been made to stay on the pitch afterwards and had some passing drills, because the passing was terrible. And on the night, I don't think that one player played well. We had one decent move the entire game, which resulted in our goal. And, coming back to the midfield, Donny, we kind of say what a great player he is and how terrific he was at Ajax. I mean, somebody needs to tell him that he can touch the ball more than twice. Every time he got the ball, he'd play a backward pass, virtually every single time. And his greatest contribution to the game, in fact, was when he didn't touch the ball and he dummied it for Greenwood to score. But we posed no threat whatsoever to Leicester. It was an easy game for them, and the game was won in midfield. The midfield was just non-existent. No flow, no passing capabilities, and we're stuck with these midfield players for the rest of the season. And if this doesn't get changed, come next season, it'll be more of the same.
I find it interesting, though. We talk about all these tactical flaws potentially, and United don't have a style to play, and all these teams that play better football than us. The be all and end all is that in these games and of recent, the poor performances have come because of an inability to do the basics. I know Karthik had this chat with you, Barry, the other day. We'll get Neil's thoughts on it quickly and then come back over to you.
Surely, just one other point.
Go on.
Another goal conceded from a set piece.
Yeah. And that was poor marking from McTominay. But a really poor mark. He absolutely left him. I'd love to see someone blame that on Maguire. by the way. Someone probably is.
If you analyse the 3 goals, the 3 goals were shocking play by United. You can't even say they were good goals by Leicester. They were awful play by United, all 3.
Do you know what? I thought, do you know the one where Fred's back pass? It gave me nightmares last night. Jermaine Genius, all he done in commentary was go on about how good that Leicester press was at that point. I actually think if you go back and watch the ball, when Fred received the ball, there was no one within 3 yards of him. It's not like they were hot on his toes. For Fred, that is a simple either around the shoulder, left foot out to Tellez, get the ball in the air, get it out, or it's a simple ball back to Henderson. There was that. It's not like Iheanacho or who was he? Was it Jamie Vardy at the time? It's not like they were hot on Fred's heels. They weren't. They weren't in Fred's face. That was and people were going, Maguire shouldn't have played him into trouble. I'm sorry, in hindsight, I think you could go back and look at 99% of the goals scored and question maybe the pass before the error that came to the goal or the pass before the ball was given away. If Ollie wants to play out from the back, I have no problem with that pass there from Maguire. You've got to take risks to play out from the back. The inability of Fred to play a simple pass is worrying. As Karthik said last night, I want to see his Brazilian passport. Don't believe it. Don't believe it.
This is not the first time that Fred has cost us a goal like that. It's happened before. I can't remember the exact game.
It wasn't a poor pass from Maguire. Maguire's ball had enough power in it for Fred to do something. I'm sorry, Temi. I love you, bro, but you can't go in at Maguire for this. If you're a defender and you're told to play out from the back, that ball to Fred, which, by the way, look at Fred's body language, he's calling for it to feet. Fred wants that ball to feet because that's Fred's job as the anchor in the midfield. He needs to get the ball from the defence, from the keeper, and distribute it. When Fred got that ball, he was square. His first touch was awful. He still didn't have a player within 2 yards of him. It was a simple pass for Fred to play. Simple. Stuart, you're talking about football about 16 years ago, 15 years ago. Now all the best teams play balls across their box and trust their players because that's how you play out from the back. I get it, the basics. I agree with you. Don't play out from the back. 100%. I think if you're a central defender, you freaking get it clear, especially when you've got a good pressing team like Leicester. But Fred there has to do better. He's a professional footballer. You have to do better. And again, as I said, in hindsight, potentially you could go back and say Maguire shouldn't play that pass. But as I say, if we're going to get into hindsight, you could probably fault every single one of the best players in world football for something that they shouldn't have done in their time. And I just don't think it's worth it. The blame game there has to go on Fred. It was awful from Fred. Neil, let me come over to you.
I'd love to know. I mean, I've got to admit, I do disagree. I think it was Tielemans, wasn't it? It was closing in on Fred. I think he was.
It was so Tielemans was coming in from one side, and then you had Iheanacho coming in from flat, from straight behind him.
I just what I can't quite understand. I mean, Fred's rolling. It was terrible.
Wait a second, Neil. I'm defending Maguire because he's English. So what? What are you trying to call out? That it's got nothing to do with that. It's to do with a basic knowledge of football and how we have played the whole of this season. And that ball, 9 times out of 10, gets dealt with by the central midfielder. Maguire makes that pass about 10 times a game, mate. Go and watch him.
Yeah, you shouldn't put messages up like that, Ben. That was a ridiculous message.
Oh, it's just a twat.
I mean, my argument was, and I think I had this with you last night, if Maguire sticks his laces through that, I mean, what I didn't understand, I'd love to know if Fred got a call, because they were clearly going to press him in. It was just, I personally thought it was a bit of a hospital pass to Fred. Fred was terrible, but it was just, you could just see that unravelling straight away as soon as that ball was played into Fred. I'd love to know what sort of communication went into Fred before that. I mean, his touch was absolutely diabolical, and the game was pretty much lost from that point onwards. We were awful, and I just don't understand. This playing out from the back is fine, but every now and then you're allowed to smash it in row Z because they can't score when it's down there, and then you rebuild from that sort of point. It was just the whole. I don't get this instruction that the team are sort of told to do this. It's like they're scared to do, I don't get this playing out from the back over and over again. it was terrible all round. I mean, I think Fred's career is now finished at United because the fans won't stand for it. And I've defended Fred, and the doc will tell you this. But I think his time's done. But I think Maguire had a fair amount of blame as well in all of that, because he could see what was going on behind Fred. Fred hasn't got eyes in the back of his head.
I don't agree. I think if you watch the pass, I think the pass to Fred is good enough for him to do something with the ball. I think the only thing in hindsight that I can say to that is Maguire's been on that pitch and we were all watching the game, and Fred probably didn't string a pass together that whole first, how long was it? 30 minutes, 35 minutes. So I suppose when it comes back to the question of Maguire has to maybe trust Fred in that situation, well, you've seen him put in a howler, not just in the first 30 minutes of that game, the whole first half of the game against AC Milan, the weeks leading up to it. Maybe don't trust him. Maybe I get that, but I don't necessarily think it was a wrong pass or a bad pass. I just think, again, if we fall into this situation where in hindsight we criticise the ball before the ball or the key pass before the assist and this and that, I think we can go and talk about every single goal that's scored, every single assist that's made in every single game. I think it just blows it open way too much. I think the main concern for me out of that whole thing there is Fred's want for the ball and then his absolute inability on it. For a professional footballer that at times has shown how good he can be, at times shown how poor he can be, that is a simple pass for Fred. It's a simple pass for Fred, and he doesn't do it. Go on, Barry.
If you watch Fred's style of play, he often receives the ball with his back to the opposition. He has a nasty habit. His first touch is poor, and he gets caught in possession often. He does this time and time again. And I mentioned last night, in fact, the finest exponent of that move was Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick, with his back to the opposition, when he got the ball, you'd think all the time he was going to be dispossessed, but he had this knack of offloading it just at the right time. Fred falls woefully short with respect to that. And Neil, I don't think this will be Fred's last game because Ollie loves Fred. He should have been hooked from the game long before last night. And again, I come back to this. For me, Fred has been useless the entire season. And what happens is you get one game when he runs around like a headless chicken and he makes a couple of tackles and everybody's extolling his virtues. And I reiterate, £52 million. The financial officer of Shakhtar must be the local hero over there for extorting that amount of money for a bang average player. Fred would get into maybe a handful of the bottom clubs in the Premiership. There'd be no place for him in any other club in the Premier League and probably half of them in the Championship. But we've got to bear with these players because we stuck with them for the rest of the season.
Brendan, he's asking for the ball to feet. Go watch it back. He's asking for that pass from Maguire because he knows, and Maguire knows, and Lindelof knows that the way Ollie wants to play is for the centre-back, when they've got the ball for the keeper, to play the pass to break the line into the middle of the park to Fred. Then Fred has to make a decision. As Barry said there, the best to do it is Michael Carrick. Make a decision. What are you doing with that ball? Whether you're clipping it around the back to go out to Tellez, or whether you're playing it straight back to the keeper for the keeper to deal with it. Fred in that position has to do it. And we saw it many times last season with Matic, who always had the strength to hold off the press and always take a moment to make his mind up, but was far too slow in making that decision. Fred's the opposite. He just doesn't make a decision and he gets himself in a flap. And I think Barry just hit on that there pretty nicely. But look, I think all in all, calling out Fred for that goal, Neil, even going back to it, there was just so many poor individual performances and so many players who just didn't look up for it. Barry hit a little bit on Van der Beek. I still don't think we could have expected him to come in and have a massive influence on the game yesterday. I think he was neat and tidy at the times. But I don't know about you. My main worry that doesn't really get hit on much with Van der Beek, on the ball, I just feel like he slows the game down too much. When he gets the ball to feet sometimes, when we're moving forward, he takes a step back, turns out and is a little bit slow. Do you think that's because he's drained of confidence at the moment to make that quick pass? Or do you think that potentially that's the speed that Ajax played at? I didn't see enough of them.
I think Ollie's got a lot to blame for Van der Beek. I rate Van der Beek highly. You don't suddenly turn into the player he's becoming at United from the player he was when we signed him. He looks a world beater. And then suddenly we're dying for him to get minutes, and then Ollie throws him into a big game like this with another player who's coming back from a long time on the sidelines in Pogba, who was absolutely terrible. I mean, they all were yesterday. But I do feel for Van der Beek in many respects, and I think it was asking a lot of Pogba as well to, he had half against Milan. He's coming back. He's still coming back from an injury. The first 11 was terrible. I mean, the setup. I mean, I still don't understand what they're telling the players. They look like a Sunday team, a Sunday league team yesterday. Well, let's see who turns up. Well, you can play there. You can play there. It's just the tactics, the picking of the team. I feel for Van der Beek because he's in a position now where he's getting grief, and now suddenly the pressure is getting bigger and bigger on him, and I don't think he deserves it. I think I still rate him highly. I rate him very highly, and if we had a decent holding midfielder, I think he's in the team. He needs to run in the team, Van der Beek. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to be thrown in, and then suddenly there's all the pressure on it because it's just a joke. I mean, the whole thing. I'm just, I said to you yesterday, let's do a show because I was absolutely furious yesterday. I was doing my nuts. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the manager's position at some point, but this goes further than just the 11 players yesterday. The whole squad's now got to look at themselves.
Mm-hmm. I just want to hit on this. Noel, we'll get to this actually, and I've got a question spinning off of Neil's there on so to speak, what we need to do moving forward for Barry in a second. But I do agree that the best we've seen of Van der Beek this season is potentially when he's able to dictate games and they move at his pace, and then we are able to spur the attacking moves on from that. I can completely agree with that. Yeah, Southampton, Brighton was one. Even the first half against Leipzig, it was brilliant. Just one more on this because I've said my point, and I think that everyone in the live chat is getting it, but also is focusing. Fair enough, which everyone can do. Some of their blame on Maguire. Everyone's got their own opinion. But Ennie, look, and again, I keep saying this. When a central midfielder, when you're told to play out from the back by your manager, and United keep playing out the back, whether we agree with it as fans or not, we keep playing out of the back. When you're a central midfielder, I don't expect you to put two hands in the air and wait for it and go, Maguire, pick me, pass the ball to me. That's never going to happen on a football pitch because you try and do things a little bit more discreet than that. When you turn around with your back to the player, whether the other team's pressing or not, and you're running towards a ball, you're asking for it. Even if you put your hands down, your body language is ready to receive it. Maguire's intelligent enough to know when one of his midfielders wants a ball. And Fred wanted that ball. Now, then it's down to him to do something with it. If you're Harry Maguire, you trust your player in that situation. If I was in that situation and Neil or Barry said, going to play the ball to me, I'd want them to trust me in that situation, to be able to play a simple pass back to Dean Henderson. I would get it more if your point was, well, wait a second, Harry Maguire's a central defender. He could see that Leicester were pressing. Why didn't he boot it into Rosette? Or they're pressing. Maguire had an Lindelof one. Why didn't he play it there? It wasn't the wrong ball for Maguire. The players around him don't matter as such. You need to trust your players to do something with the ball. And I think he trusted Fred a little bit too much there in hindsight. Because let's face it, as Barry said a moment ago, on the ball, he hasn't been good enough. And again, it's happened with Lindelof this season. He's played the ball into players when there's the opposition around them. It just happens in football when you play out from the back. You've got to take a risk. And Maguire took the risk. And Fred took even more of a risk dwelling on the frigging ball. So, as a defence and as United, but I think this comes off nicely with what Neil was saying there about confidence and the way we're playing, Barry. Is the way to fix this getting more time on the training pitch? Do you believe if Ollie has more time on the training pitch with these players that we can rectify these issues?
No. I don't think that you can turn Fred into a good player.
No, not just that. But Barry, playing out from the back, but being in a position to be able to play out from the back, and how Ollie wants to play.
I don't think we can, because we've been playing out from the back for a long time. And each time we play out from the back, I think a lot of us develop a bit of chest pain at the thought of what might happen. I don't think these players, many of them, are skillful enough to play out from the back. And I don't think that you can coach that to players that aren't adept at being coached. And they must have been looking at this for much of the season, yet they're not able to do it. So I don't think we'll see any change with respect to this whatsoever. Just my thoughts on that.
Is it personnel, Barry? Barry, is it a personnel issue? Is it the transfer window? We need to get in there and cull half the squad.
It is the personnel, and We focused on so many different areas of the team that need strengthening, like the right wing, like a striker. But where we're crying out the most, where we're being shown up the most, is in that defensive midfield department. We need one world-class player in that position to do the work of the two that he's having to choose every week, who, quite frankly, are just not good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. Neil, what about you? For you, is it another big personnel overhaul? I suppose we're at a point now where we've sort of gone, we've got rid of a lot of the deadwood, and now we're finding new deadwood within our squad. It's a revolving process.
Yeah, to be fair, Ben, there's an argument to say that you're probably right there, unfortunately, that we are finding more deadwood as we're going along. I don't think we've got the experience in terms of the management, the coaching side, to get us off this carousel that we seem to be on at the moment. I think the changes need to go higher up with the team. I think you could argue it might be an overhaul, whether it's the management side, because I think Ollie's after yesterday, I think Ollie's under an enormous amount of pressure now. Because as I said before on many a show, he needs a trophy and he needs it this season. Personally, I think I think a lot of the blame for yesterday sits fairly and squarely on Ollie's shoulders, because the buck stops with the manager. Sir Alex would never have stood for a performance like that. He would never have come out and offered these lily-livered excuses after the game. Sir Alex wouldn't have stood for that. And I there didn't seem to be any passion from the team yesterday, from the management. It was just weak and watery, and like I said to you yesterday, Ben, I was so angry from start to finish and top to bottom of that club. And you look at other managers that are around and you see their passion, and I just wish Ollie had wish he just showed some passion. I'm not saying he doesn't care. I know he loves the club, but I don't think he doesn't cut the mustard for me at the moment.
Interesting. Skeptic, I wasn't going in at Temi. I was going in at a number of comments, and one on Twitter which irked me. Temi's my brother. We all have footballing opinions, but we're still friends at the end of it. Get them in, guys. I think there's a lot going on at the moment in the live chat, but I want to jump into some of the pundits and what they've been saying and some of the other reactions to the game. We're not going to base this around Twitter, but I want to chat to you both about, and actually, Neil, it comes off perfectly from what you've just said, and Barry, I'll come over to you first on this. Danny Murphy has said some interesting things on TalkSport this morning. And I know TalkSport, you tend to get some quotes and they're out of context, but I listened back to the chat and it was quite interesting what he was saying. A bit like you, Neil. He said they can't be blaming tiredness for a loss at Leicester in the FA Cup and their squad not being strong enough. United competing in the Europa League is not good enough, first and foremost. The fans know that, the club know that, and Ollie knows that. Not progressing in the Champions League was a massive, massive blow for them. Yes, they're going to get in the top four, but so they damn should. Ollie's in a position for me where the Europa League has become monumental for him and the club. I like him, and I've not said that I want to see him sacked, but I do think they've made some stride forwards. But United have to be doing better. If they don't win the Europa League and only finish in the top four, then I think they'll make a change. What do you make of that comment, Barry?
I agree, actually.
I don't agree with that. I think Ollie is the blue-eyed boy and the yes man of the board and the owners. And I think that he's under a lot of instruction from them. I don't think he's the type of guy who throws his toys out the cot when he can't get the player that he wants. He's a manager who I think has been told you toe the line. And I don't think that if we don't win the Europa League, I still think we'll see Ollie at the club next season. Would I want to see him at the club next season? Unless he has a monumental transfer window. If we're going to get the same drivel dished up that we're getting on a regular basis, then I would like to not see him at the club next season, together with his coaching staff, whom I agree with Neil, are, I think, naive. But if there's a decent transfer window and we do strengthen in those areas, Ollie will be there.
Guys, get in the live chat and let me know what you think about these comments, because I think they're quite interesting. I think people have made their thoughts on Ollie and bits and pieces like that of recent time known, and I think we all know that he's a bit of a novice, isn't he, really? He's managing the biggest club in world football and hasn't really had any experience like this before. I mean, he's got United in his DNA, that's clear, and he's done a number of good, but I'll come back to it. And I don't know how much I can blame Ollie. Don't know how much I can blame the squad. Maybe I'm stupid. This squad isn't as good enough as I thought it was when we were doing these tier lists a few months back. Because I thought we had a really, really good squad at that point. And maybe it's not as good as I thought. But I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Ollie too much credit. I think with the position we were in after the game against AC Milan, I could genuinely see us go on to a potential cup double and securing second. Now I've got no faith in anyone at the club, management, staff, players, to even win a trophy and get second. Neil, go on to see your thoughts on Murphy's comments.
I think I agree with him. I think that I've got to admit, I mean, I think Murphy's quite a good judge, actually. I know he played for Cesspool, but I think he's quite a good judge. And I agree, United are a massive club. He knows it. We know it. And yet, I'll tell you, here's one question. All managers get the sack at some point or leave a club. When it comes to Ollie, do you think any other club in the Premier League would take him as their manager? I doubt it very, very much indeed. He got the job. Great. He did fantastic his first 8 games. Then he fell off a cliff. And now there's talk about this, whatever this contract is. I mean, hope to God he's not signed it, to be honest, because I love the guy who scored one of the most important goals in the club's history. But I think Murphy's right. We should be aiming for the stars. We're just happy just to be bowling along now. Whether that's the board, whether that's top to root and branch for this club, and I would love to know what Sir Alex Ferguson thinks of what's going on at his club.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. That argument always comes up. Would Ollie get a job in another club at the Premier League? I think he would do. I think he would do. But again, it's circumstance, Neil. For instance, I think if Newcastle sacked Steve Bruce tomorrow and Ollie was there, I think they'd probably take Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the club.
All right, then. What about this? Would you swap Ole Gunnar? Now, this is just hear me out on this, because you know my views on Leeds. And would you swap Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for Bielsa?
Do you know what I love about Bielsa? And I'll give you a straight answer to it in a second. But I think when we answer this question, let's remember a famous story from Rio Ferdinand when he was getting a drugs test after United played Athletic Bilbao Athletic Club, and Bielsa was the manager there at that point. They're playing some fantastic football. They blew United away, I think, during those legs as well in the Champions League. And I think didn't we just come out and win that, Barry? I can't remember. I don't know if my logic's only right. I think we just go through, or did we go out to Athletic? I can't remember.
No, we lost.
Anyway, yeah, we did, didn't we? We went out and they were fantastic from what I remember, and they were one of Bielsa's first, one of his first big club projects in Europe, and Rio Ferdinand, whilst getting a drugs test, said to Ander Herrera, "What's he like, this Bielsa character? Like, he seems strange. Like, what's he like?" And Herrera said to him, "He makes us work so hard. We might tail off at the end of the season, but training under him is unreal." What's the one thing that all Bielsa's teams do? They do the basics right, and then the foundations come in around it. That's what United lack. We're trying to get everything coming around it, and our team can't get the foundations right. I would take Bielsa as Manchester United manager any day of the week. Maybe not right now. I don't know.
I would,
but I think he's destined for City. I think he ends up in City when Pep goes.
No, I don't care. Just go and get him. I'd have Calvin Phillips as well, to be honest. If you're looking at old,
and would you have Harry Kane as well?
Oh, Kane's a walkover. We get Kane. I've got it. That's a done deal. So we get Kane. I'm telling you now, get Kane. Look how good he was. I mean, Kane's just come back to the Spurs. Don't start me on Kane. He's the best striker in the world, and that's it. I
agree with what Brendan says here.
Get Kane.
He needs the players to do it, Bielsa. Well, and again, it's a whole restructuring thing again, isn't it?
We've all agreed that we've got a talented squad. There is talent in that squad. I don't care which way you look at it, but we look knackered. We've got no tactics. I don't know what they've been told to do. But you look at someone like Bielsa and what he's done with Leeds on hardly any money he spent. And I know, and I've got a friend of mine who's watching this, who's a Leeds fan. So a bit of a shout out to my friend Steve, because I sent him the link and said, you might want to watch this today because me and the doc might be tearing into them. And he said, he's just sent me a text saying we're digging out Fred today. And I think I'll have a phone call with him afterwards. But I would, you look at what Bielsa's done with a decent enough Leeds team And I know we battered Leeds, and we did batter them, but Bielsa with their squad makes suddenly we could win a trophy.
I don't think the time is right for Bielsa.
We won't win a trophy. We won't win a trophy under Ole this year. We're not going to win the Europa League.
Can I come back to what you were asking, Ben, in terms of, is the squad good enough? The squad lacks balance. We're still crying out for a right-sided wide player. We've demonstrated the deficiencies in terms of holding midfielders. We've got a number 9 in Cavani who's in the twilight of his years and is injury prone. Martial is not a number 9. So we the talent is there in the squad, but there are holes that need to be filled by the appropriate players. And, until we do that, I think we're going to have a big problem. Those people that are posting in terms of managers being fired and things like that, that's football today. There are very few managers who are in for the long haul. But and as fans, we're reactionary. After the Milan game, we were ecstatic. You have one bad game and everybody's calling for everybody's heads, I guess myself included, when it comes to Fred and his mates. But the manager's not going to be fired based on yesterday's game. Not a chance. I think he's to stay. And I think that we will still see Ole at the club next season, whether we win the Europa League or not. If we fall short of the Europa League and we don't finish in the top 4, and the runners-up spot is not bolted down, Leicester are 1 point behind us. And let's face it, at the moment, if you look at the way the two teams are playing, they look a hell of a lot better than we do, and they're playing with a lot of injured players. So,
but then in perspective, Barry, again, just in perspective though, like obviously we lost 3-1 yesterday, but that's still only 4 goals conceded in over 800 minutes of football. Obviously we're slamming the defence and the way we play out from the back and what we're doing. Also, that's one away game lost in 36, isn't it? Or something like that. It's not all doom and gloom, is it?
No, not at all. And the defence is not the main problem. It really isn't. But, defensively, we've highlighted the fact that I think it's on record, I might be wrong, but from set pieces, we've conceded more goals than any other team this season. Now,
I could have told you that without looking at a record, Barry.
Kartik told me that.
I bet he did.
We need to iron that out on the training pitch. That is what the training pitch is for. And something like that needs to be ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
As for the rest of Danny Murphy's comments, I agree with them. The only comment I don't agree with that he made was that Solskjaer won't be there next season if we don't win the Europa League. But otherwise, his comments are pretty well founded.
Well, look, one more comment from a former pro, this time a United footballer, Mark Hughes, after the game yesterday, came out and spoke particularly about Donny van der Beek, saying that he looks lost and that if he wants to revive his career, he might have to leave United. Some comments saying that he should move on. It wasn't. It was that if he wants to revive his career and get his confidence back, he needs to play regular football, and he hasn't shown enough at United to get regular football. Neil, A, would you agree with those comments? And B, when we're looking to buy a defensive midfielder or someone like an Ndidi, could you see a world where potentially we line up with, say, for instance, that new defensive midfielder, Van der Beek, Bruno, and Pogba in the same team?
Well, that's what we're looking for, isn't it? We're looking for a way that, personally, I think Donny, I'm talking about him like he's my bloody neighbour. He needs a running the team, and if we can get an Ndidi type player, Basuma is my personal favourite from Brighton. One of those type of players, and allow us to play another creative player in there. It pushes the whole midfield further up the pitch, pushes everybody further up. Because 2 holding midfield players it's just winds the hell out of me. I mean, give me I do not see the point. We're set up to try and defend games. We used to be an attacking or go for it sort of team, and I don't see why we can't do that. We got thoroughly outplayed by Leicester City, for God's sake. It's just, and I think they might chase us down for the second spot. My personal opinion, if we don't get second in the league, then I think that's a failure.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
I'm angry. I'm very. You know how angry I was yesterday, Ben.
Do you know what's made me even more angry today? The fact that obviously Marcus Rashford is joining up with the England squad. I don't get that either. Like he hasn't been fit for months.
Why did he put Bruno and Shaw on the bench?
I didn't get that.
They're giving them a break before the international break.
Let's rest them for England and Portugal.
Ben, I think the rules of the international games are, even if a player is injured, he has to report. And he has to be assessed by the medical staff of the.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday. To be
in
fair,
Marcus's case of the England side, they've clamped down on that quite a lot because one used to find that a lot of the top teams, when it came to the international breaks, their players suddenly had little niggling injuries that they couldn't report for because the club had important games. So I think they've clamped down on that. It doesn't mean that he's going to play for England, but I think he needs to be assessed by the England medical staff.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday, to be fair. It's still annoying, though. But again, though, with Bruno going to Portugal, I'm intrigued to know where Portugal are going to be basing their training camp and playing their games. Because obviously with the UK, the travel restrictions in place still. With Portugal and Brazilian and South American countries. And of course, a whole heap of Brazilian internationals and Argentine internationals, even Cavani for Uruguay. They're either having to meet up in Europe in countries where it doesn't affect the travel ban or they're not going on international duty. I think Brazil aren't playing any games.
We would pray that Fred gets called into the Brazilian squad and that they're playing in Sao Paulo.
Just a quick one, but on that, by the way, shout out Ahmed Diallo. He's got his first international call up for the Ivory Coast. Fantastic news this morning. Well done, the young lad. I hope he gets some game time. But just quickly on Mark Hughes' comments, Barry, just very briefly, what do you think? Do you see a world, like I just mentioned to Barry, where we could get a quality central defensive midfielder to bring Donny, Pogba, and Bruno into the same team?
Definitely, that's what we're crying out for, and I think. These comments that Donny should leave United to resurrect his career, I think, are nonsense. It's his first season there. In his defence, he's often been used as a bit-time player, subbed on late in the game, and often used in a formation where he's surrounded maybe with some of our not-so-great players. So I think we've got to, he's a work in progress. He was superb at Ajax. I, like many others, was very excited when we signed him. We've got to give him a chance. And again, I think that's where the coaching staff have an important role to play, because Ajax play a different kind of football from United, and it's fast-paced, one-touch, two-touch football, and that's what was ideal for him. So either the team has to change some of the way it plays, or he has to change some of the way that he plays. The coaches need to earn their money with respect to that.
Well, look, one more point, guys. We should do this every day. Just Ben, Neil and Barry does paper talk. Just have a look and rip a new one on the journalists and the pundits out there. I love that. This has been good fun, guys.
I'll do it from my hospital bed tomorrow, because I'll be in about this time tomorrow. I'll be in the hospital bed.
We'll probably get more sense out of you.
We have a public holiday in South Africa today. That's why
pot and kettle there, Ben.
Cheers, Neil. Is it? Oh, Barry, do you know what's really funny? So, guys, by the way, Neil, Barry, and me, we usually do a show on Thursdays at 1:30 in the afternoon. We're hoping Neil obviously has to go into hospital. Neil, by the way, jokes aside, wish you all good, buddy. I hope everything goes fine, and we hope you can join us on Thursday. But as we said, if you can't, don't stress. Peter Bolton is going to join us. Epic United fan. He's going to join us on Thursday's show, no matter what, for us to have a bit of a chinwag. And Peter and Barry know each other really well. Yeah. And Peter sent me a message today, right, in response, going, "Yep, can do that, Ben. Does Barry ever work? Lucky he's not employed by the NHS."
That's I'd like to respond to that, because I, in fact, am older than Peter, and Peter is retired.
Oh, right. There we go.
Throw that one back at Peter.
Do you know what, Barry?
You look money.
Yeah, please keep working, because I don't need you every day messaging me to do a show because you're bored. Please keep working. And I don't think Neil can deal with that much attention from you.
I'm definitely not bored.
Just one more point, guys, and very briefly, Neil, obviously it's a bit of doom and gloom at the moment, but in perspective, look, yeah, we're out the FA Cup, we're through to the Europa League, quarterfinals. We've also got a nice clear route to the final there potentially, and in the league, things aren't going too drastically bad. Look, the away record semi came to an end, but domestically, it's still on in some ways when it comes to the league. We're not losing games. This has been one where we didn't turn up, we didn't play well. Hopefully, a kick up the arse. But what are our expectations now, Neil, between now and the end of the season? Can you find a sense of some opportunistic positivity right now to try and think that we can have a good end to the season?
Well, we should be. Well, we've said all along, I think Ollie needs a trophy, so he's got to aim for a trophy. But I think he needs second in the Champions League. We don't want to do the qualifying rounds of the Champions League. This team needs a bit of a break, which is not going to happen because of the Euros coming up. So there's a lot of juggling that needs to be done with this team, and I don't think the coaching side, I don't think there's enough experience to know how to juggle this squad between now and the end of the season. And I think we'll just about fall over the line. But I have my doubts whether we can win the Europa League.
What about you, Barry?
I'm probably on the same page as Neil there, because all we need is one abject performance like we had yesterday in the Europa League and we'll be out. If you look on paper, unfortunately, the game is played on a playing field and not on the paper. But on paper, we're probably the strongest team left in the Europa League. Doesn't mean we're going to win it. So you just don't know what you're going to get when United come out onto the field. One game they look like world beaters, the next game they look like a bunch of Sunday pub players. So I just don't know. But I do think we'll finish in the top four. I would like us to finish up as runners-up. Agree with what Neil says. We don't want to play qualifiers in the Champions League. And it also, stamps a bit of authority on the name, that we're up there, albeit way behind the noisy neighbours. But I don't know what's going to be in that Europa League, and I think we must concentrate. The old cliche, one game at a time. We've got Granada coming up. Let's get past them, and then we'll worry about the semi-final.
Guys,
the optimist in me says we'll win the Europa League. The realist in me says something will go awry and we'll have another performance like yesterday.
Well, look, we keep saying, and we've said this so many times during Ollie's reign, he's got to learn from the bad moments and move us forward. And do you know what? If the semi-finals and this quarter-final doesn't teach the players and Ollie a lesson and potentially the coaching staff, then, well, I don't know what is. So maybe then we can start asking questions. But right now, there's still so much to play for. Common United, there's an international break obviously up now, but then we're home to Brighton on Easter Sunday. Neil and Barry will be joining me. Hopefully, Neil, you as well. Again, good luck, mate. I hope everything goes well. On Thursday, Daniel Nardiello and Dale with me on Wednesday. No show from me tomorrow. However, loads of content coming up tonight with the women's team discussing the landmark broadcasting deal that the Women's Super League have just landed, which is fantastic news for the sport in general. Fantastic news for the sport in general. And also a Q&A show with Temi tonight. Go check out your boy. Maybe ask him a question on how much he likes me after my rant today. I'd be interested to know on a scale of 1 to 10 if we're still best friends. Temi, you're my best friend. Go on, Neil.
Oh, he's mine.
No, he's mine. Leave him. Wait. I will fight you for him and you'll beat me, but I'll still fight you for him. Guys, thank you for watching. Smash the like on this video. Speak to you in a bit. Stay safe all. Ciao for now.